Vedi. At the end, we have KD. Hopefully your mic isn't muted this time.
Yeah, last time I was muted. I made such a banger joke, but I can't make it again because it was a once-in-a-lifetime moment joke and you're never going to hear it again.
Unlucky. Unlucky, chat.
Maybe you will.
But the chat's already rising. Excited to see Pedro back on the desk again alongside Vedi. The banter geniuses.
It's going to be flying.
It's the British lads ready to take you through what will be a banger day of games with Mad Lions versus G2, a battle of champions. Yeah. Both G2 and Mad Lions. We'll see who's able to come out on top. Only one will move forward to face Vitality tomorrow, and the other will be sent home.
They have a long history in best of fives as well. It was Mad who first took down that 2020 G2 roster that had won everything. Then Mad won 2 splits, then G2 fought back, and now we'll see who wins out today. Last time G2 took it 3-0. So as I was saying before I was so rudely cut off.
Yeah.
Last time they played in a best of 5, it was the finals of Winter. G2 won 3-0, secured themselves a spot at MSI, and now they are fighting in the lower bracket. Loser of this is eliminated from contention for the LEC Spring Championship. Of course, BDS wait in the first place match.
Head-to-head's not great in the favor of Mad Lions this year, is it? So we'll see if they can change things up here in the spring. Already into draft. Can't wait to hear more stories later on, Mikyx, though. Vi, Jace taken away, Olaf taken away. Is Draven a ban, you think, for Mad Lions? Is Draven... It's been such a ban throughout...
Yeah, yes, it is.
Do they ban Draven and Zeri on red side?
I mean, do they ban Bel'Veth as well? Because G2 have been such a strong proponent of having Bel'Veth for Yike, getting him a head.
A wed?
I mean, maybe he's getting married. But sometimes the Void Queen just needs a little company, Caedrel. Okay. But yeah,
maybe she does, Mikyx. But let's see if she gets it or if she's being put in the ban list. Mad Lions could ban away Zeri.
Annie, Rakan.
Rakan, Zeri, Bel'Veth. There's so many OP champs open, actually, now that I look at it. So I think both teams will be happy going through those. Rakan has to be a first pick here for G2, doesn't it?
I don't know. I feel like Mickey's the type of player that would have an answer for the Rakan, but we'll have to wait and see. Jungle priority has been such a massive thing for many European teams, but it will be the Kennen. So adopting a little bit more of what we've been seeing over in the LPL and the LCK with such a high priority on the Kennen.
It does mean, though, that with Gragas being let through, Nisqy can take that into the mid lane. Often when Mad Lions succeed, it is Nisqy on a utility roaming champion from mid, get him into those side lanes, and then manage to team up with Elyoya. Probably discussing what they want to pick after the Gragas here. As you said, the Rakan a possibility, but there are some counters still available to G2.
Yeah, looking at Rakan, Zeri, Wukong is still up as well. We'll see where that Gragas goes, because I think Nisqy, phenomenal Gragas. And BrokenBlade's been playing a lot of ability power top laners. I think in his last few games, he's mainly been playing things like the Gragas and the Kennen. That frees up Yike to play the junglers a lot more. You don't really over-index too much in top jungle in terms of damage share, but that's something that they've been looking towards. It also frees up Caps if he wants to play some kind of AD mid. You just have that reliable AP champ. There's the Rakan picked up for Hilly. Hilly Rakan, I think, is almost iconic when it comes to his history of playing in the LEC. I think G2 can match, like you said, with things like the Nautilus.
Or Morgana, right?
Don't even get me started. Jinx Thresh,
Jinx
G2,
Thresh.
Thank you.
All right.
Massive shout out to G2. Last week, they were still on the Varus hype train. They were still getting a bit of copium in their veins, but now they know Jinx is the go-to pick. I would be surprised if Mad Lions don't pick Xayah here.
Cheeky hover of the Nisqy Twisted Fate. Of course, a champion that's very well known, associated with Nisqy, but I do wonder if something like, the Xayah, of course. We also talked a little bit about the Aphelios. Carzzy doesn't have the greatest track record on the champion, but when we talk about scaling or hyper-scaling AD carries, Aphelios and Jinx normally sit up there. Regardless, though, Xayah, Rakan, very powerful 2v2 in the bot side.
Bel'Veth has to be a ban now for Mad Lions. You're looking at Wukong, you're looking at Bel'Veth as the next two junglers in line, and then things like the Jarvan, but they're actually going to ban Cassio for now, so maybe they're not too worried about that Bel'Veth.
You can go Cassio Bel'Veth, right? Cassio is just really strong into the Gragas in mid lane, really neuters any power for the Gragas alongside the Rakan. Like, there's no ability to get in. The other thing you could look at is Camp's going to play Veigar? Because Veigar's really annoying as a Rakan player as well.
That's true. I think Mad Lions have a very good opening for draft here with Wukong on 4 and then picking something like Ahri on 5. That could round out their draft pretty nicely, or they can save counter pick later on for that mid lane with the Gragas flex. I mean, Kennen's already picked, right?
I agree with you. I really doubt the Gragas is going to go top. Just because of how much Nisqy has played Gragas in the mid lane. I think if it was anyone but Nisqy, I would say Gragas is a flex, but here my expectation is that the Gragas will go mid.
Do we get to see Chasy's Aurelia? Something like that into the Kennen would be great. But there's the Bel'Veth ban, I think, to no one's surprise.
Part of me thinks that we might see the Scion once again from Chasy. Not something that he often defaulted to, but something that we saw Adam have great success with in the matchup against Photon last week. Regardless, though, with Malphite being taken off the board, you imagine that G2 will look to continue to remove some top lane options. I do believe it was BrokenBlade who played the Cho'Gath into the Kennen matchup as well. But it will be the Wukong ban, something that you talked about earlier, trying to mitigate some of those early powerful junglers. So now we move into the next tier of junglers, things like potentially Lee Sin, maybe a Jarvan.
Yeah. Jarvan, Lee Sin. Jarvan's kind of hard into Thresh, but I mean, they have Kennen and Jinx. You could also flex the Jarvan on 4 here for top as well. So it's quite a nice flex pick here. But Lee Sin, I think, is a better champion. The Thresh just does way too much against the Lee Sin. Now I wonder what Yike actually does play into this Lee Sin. We've seen things like his Lilia, we've seen his Graves, his Viego, Kindred. I don't think he's going to struggle to find a champ.
I was thinking even Nocturne, but I don't love Nocturne into
Xayah. Of course you would.
I mean, over in the LPL, they're not afraid to pick things like Nocturne into the Lee Sin. I think it can be a pretty solid matchup, but into Xayah, you don't really love it, especially when there's so much disengage with the Gragas.
No, Nocturne doesn't exist. Not a champ. I refuse to believe it. It used to be playable when you had like Galio and stuff, and you had really full follow-up hard engage, but not into Xayah. I think it's just...
No, I agree.
A bit of a bit rough one. Viego's good though. I think Viego can win out.
I mean, it was also a Yike classic, right? This was something that he would often default to when he initially debuted alongside G2. Often a very powerful skirmisher, and when paired up with something like an Ahri, gives you a pretty powerful 2v2 presence.
I think G2, so I talked about the Wukong on 4, Ahri on 5 for Mad Lions. I think G2 were scared here. They're going to go for the Aurelion Sol blind pick, which is fantastic. Cap's such a great Aurelion Sol player in the past, but they were thinking about taking away the Ahri, and I think if they did that, they would run into a Lissandra on 5, and they would find themselves in a really big hole in draft. So blinding the Aurelion Sol looks like going for range is the answer here rather than kill pressure.
And looks like you might be right as well, Caedrel. The Gragas going towards the top lane for Chasy. Lissandra now locked in for Mad Lions in the mid lane.
Crisp from Mad Lions. Xayah, Rakan with things like Lissandra, Lee Sin, you love the amount of setup you have in the mid game. So Mad Lions will be very happy with that draft. Gragas is the nullifier. They're going to play mid to bot. G2, I think top will also be in isolation, but I think they're scaling on G2. Aurelion Sol Jinx, they can get to 4 or 5 items. It's lights out for Mad.
They're a very squishy team, though. If you look across this, like, who is tanky on that team at all? If you're caught out by the Gragas, if you're caught out by a Frozen Tomb, you're going to get popped. Mad Lions can start isolating one target at the start and then winning the team fight just through a numbers advantage. It could be tricky for G2 to get to that scaled position.
I will say, you've got Gragas ultimate, you've got Lee Sin kick, you've got Lissandra CC, you've got Rakan charm. There are a lot of things to get in the way of the Kennen trying to find that flanking engage, right? And I think the Mad Lions engage options in and of themselves are just easier to execute. So when it comes to setting up the fights, I think that this is something that G2 may struggle with. But I very much agree with Caedrel that when we look at just pure objective scaling, G2 have a massive advantage when you look at that Jinx and the Aurelion Sol.
And it's also like nuanced scaling in the sense where they will be powerful on paper, the Aurelion Sol and the Jinx, but how can you play around it? Because a Lee Sin kick, a Lee Sin does fall off, but a Lee Sin kick, a good kick flash never gets outscaled, right?
We've seen Vedius, you know, 60 minutes into a game, learns how to play Lee Sin and finds the kick.
Exactly, throwback.
It could always have an impact later on in the game. Mad Lions facing off against G2 in our first best of 5 of the weekend. 2 more to follow. Let's see who faces Vitality tomorrow. Lights out, and away we go onto Summer's Draft once again. I was wondering for a brief moment whether we'd see the Heartsteel Kennen from BrokenBlade in the top lane, just to add a bit of tankiness to the lineup, but he has gone summon Airy, which implies that it won't be Heartsteel. You usually see Grasp if you're going to go for that tankier build.
So here we are, day 1 of the finals weekend. Either of these teams, no matter who wins, will have to play another best of 5 tomorrow, and then a third best of 5 if they manage to win out on that one too. So a lot of preparation for this weekend. Need a lot of endurance, both these teams.
Last split, it was Mad Lions that ran that gauntlet. They ended up facing G2 in the finals, and they did end up falling short, but they went the full 5 games against SK. They then were able to defeat Rogue. I believe it was at a 3-1 outcome, and ended up falling short at the final hurdle, but it is definitely it's a grind having to go through the gauntlet.
It's a grind for you, but it's also such a treat for the enemy team. You know, BDS will sit there and they'll get so much information on these teams, exactly what they want to play. But I feel like we're seeing G2 and these teams taking a page out of the BDS book, playing things like the Jinx now. They've gone for the Aurelion Sol, which is kind of like a scaling mage in a sense, but wow, Caps is just...
He's really abusing the Q, so like when you're applying that Q, let it stack up a little bit, and then you get that extra bit of the proc damage, which he's using to full effect right now, and he is just abusing his range over Nisqy. Nisqy's doing what he can to try and trade back.
It's just every time he steps up, it's like, you know those adventure games when you're trying to get past like the next step and there's like a fire breathing thing and you have to wait for the timer to come off. So frustrating to walk up for Nisqy.
To get a better cycle, okay? It's on 60 FPS cycles. You just have to work out when you can sneak past the fire-breathing dragon to get to the princess's castle, save her from Bowser, and then collect the hammer at the end. You know, it's super easy.
Observers, if you could just click on Caps for us, because then we can basically see, like, I'd love to look at his cooldowns in the bottom left. Basically, every time his Q was up, he was looking to use it. And just consistently harass his lane opponent. Yeah, it's very low cooldown. Also, the mana cost really isn't that high in the early laning phase, who's taking advantage of that. But while we've been seeing so much trading in mid, push has been gained by BrokenBlade in the top lane matchup. In the bot side, also, that advantage has been gained for Hansama and Mikyx. Full clear top side jungle for Elyoya, as Yike has chosen to start a blue Gromp, and now he's moved into his own bot side.
So we didn't actually see that on screen, but Carzzy had to cleanse away. I think Mikyx must have hit a hook on him. Cleanse away from the hook on the level 2 disadvantage. Still level 1 here, they're gonna level up now, but having lost that cleanse, it becomes a lot more difficult to walk up and take trades. Normally it's great for the Xayah to walk up so the Rakan can E and then W to gap close onto the AD sometimes. Now they're gonna lose a little bit of that aggression, so you can see both junglers matching each other towards this bot side.
Hook into Chompers then, we'll catch Carzzy underneath the tower. Wave already pushed in. And for the moment, you can see G2 gaining quite a strong early lead down here, you know, 8 CS or so in their advantage.
Yike mainly just hovering around the bot side river. Obviously for both junglers, it's something you have to be careful of. When you do get that early prio, bot side junglers can look to invade, try and steal away something like the Gromp, maybe even the blue buff. But for now, both junglers having the freedom to clear as much as they like. Mad gained information on the river, so they assume that the bot side is clear, giving Elyoya the space to secure his first Scuttle Crab, as Hansama has looked for a bit of a cheater recall, has the slight CS advantage in the bot lane, has gone back to base, spent some of that money. He'll be able to replenish the resources, so he should come back into lane that bit stronger. But so far, very tepid early game from both teams.
And before we get into any more action, I'll just highlight 4 people. If you look on the overlay, you can see how many stacks Caps has. That pink bar also shows how close he is to leveling up to level 5. We'll try and keep a track on those stacks as the game goes on. But usually, it's about 10 stacks a minute is a really good position for Aurelion Sol to be in. Early game, you struggle a little bit because you get stacks from charging your Q on enemy champions or getting executions with your E, or getting shutdowns and such. So for the moment, a little bit difficult as Chasy flashes away in the top lane, stunned up with the Spectral Maw underneath the tower. He will get taken out in the end. It's BrokenBlade who takes the kill.
Great gank setup there from Yike. Chasy got caught napping a bit. The waves pushing towards BrokenBlade. Ideally want to pick up a little bit more gold there before he took a base. Ends up falling now. Mad Lions on the cross map. BrokenBlade has the TP to match this. Caps does not. Summoners are available for G2 here, so the dive is a little bit complicated. They have got an Ignite to work with, but Nisqy's on the way down. Ward on the entrance red. Elyoya's recalling right now. Maybe he's calling the play off.
Could just be waiting for a moment as well. Mikyx puts the lantern down. Hansama grabs it. Will be forced away from the tower. Loses about half a plate, 3/4 of the plate. Shouldn't be the whole tower plate falling as of yet, as Carzzy and Hylissang unable to do that last bit of chip damage. But you can see Caps already roaming from the mid lane. Elyoya hooked! That's the lollipop if I've ever seen one, and it doesn't taste too good for Elyoya. In fact, it tastes like death. Nisqy now caught out, pops a Ring of Frost, flashes the wall to get away, but the Astral Flight from Caps will chase them. Yike gonna dash back forward as they look for a little bit more. The stolen safeguard acting as a deterrent as Mad Lions forced under that tower.
Great hook from Mikyx, and a great punish from G2. As Mad Lions, they tried to make the cross map happen, but you identified it earlier, Caedrel. The wave was just so awkward. The timing wasn't great for Mad, which meant that in the window that they had, they couldn't really make full advantage of it. This meant that both Yike and Caps could respond to the rotations that had come through for Mad, and they're able to return themselves a pick.
So Caps is blocking off Nisqy here, forcing him down. Elyoya thinks he can get out, but Mikyx just insane hook onto Elyoya. Maybe had W up, maybe wants to W Nisqy. Had a ward as well that he could have jumped to, but once you get hit by that hook, the chain CC comes in. Picture in picture, you can see the BrokenBlade's got the stun, but he won't get the kill. Caps forces Nisqy's flash, and they don't manage to find the reset, of course, because yeah, can't use the ult on level 6 yet, even though he has the soul picked up. He can't gap close with that dash.
Yeah, he'd also used the Q earlier, so it was on cooldown, making it harder to follow up as well. But overall, G2 in this early game find themselves in a healthy gold lead already. We talked about the scaling, how on paper they do have this massive advantage, and we're not going to write Mad off right from the get-go, but to build this lead, G2's feeling pretty comfortable with this early game so far.
And the worst part of all of this is the Chasy just tossing ult there, maybe trying to push BrokenBlade into the wave and then queuing it so he can get tower aggro. The worst part is here, Capsule has flash. This is the setup you want. Ignite on the Spellbook Lissandra, Lee Sin, just set up, get the kill, but Capsule has that summoner, so it becomes really difficult. And if he plays safe, this Aurelion Sol will get deceptively tanky when he gets things like the Rod of Ages.
Oh yeah.
Even the Ride Lights.
HP, right?
Yeah, you spilled full HP and it just becomes so difficult to kill. So Mad Lions know that they have to force things in this early game. They have bot push, they have mid push. Both of these lanes are playing safe because they want to scale. 7 minutes in, they're going to get this first dragon, but G2 will just maintain this gold lead and maybe just look to cross map. Yike's going to go into Elyoya's topside jungle, but there's nothing to take away at the moment.
You imagine that he's going to look to set up for the Herald as well. Still 45 seconds away though, so Mad could look to respond if they felt strongly to do so, but instead, yeah, you can already see Chasy got back to base, recognizes that the dive is a very real thing. He's going to sacrifice that wave, and he's not going to take the gamble. Play picked up for BrokenBlade, but overall G2 continue to maintain this gold lead and nothing too chaotic happening in this early game.
So I think what we'll see is G2 oftentimes mismatching or maybe avoiding specific fights up until a point where they think they've got a breakthrough. Because, I mean, Lissandra Lee Sin will only get stronger when it comes to 1 or 2 items. The Gore Drinker, the Everfrost, the Chain CC only really gets worse. So Mad Lions will index so much into these dragon fights, and it's on G2 to decide when they want to take the dragon fight. So we'll see if Mad Lions roll a good soul, because something like the Hextech Soul would be game-changing, whereas the Cloud would be something that G2 can look into avoiding a bit more. Carzzy playing really cocky here, trying to make sure that G2 look for a fight.
Chasy's going to have to escape from the top side as the Slicing Maelstrom comes out. Chasy, no flash and nowhere for him to go. Yike and BrokenBlade should just be able to chase him down. The Happy Hour healing him a little bit, but the Spectral Maw finds its mark. Yike hits 6 and gets the kill in the top side.
Chasy just trying to push out that top wave and then get away to safety, but he didn't have the flash available. His ultimate was also on cooldown, and ends up giving away another kill to G2. Once again, though, Elyoya hovering around mid, looking for a play.
Should go for the wall jump flash kick.
That's the stun. Frozen Tomb coming out. Elyoya dashes forward, dodges the falling star. There's the kick. Elyoya perfectly played to escape the clutches of Caps under the tower.
Yike arrives, but the mid jungle are out. Mad Lions maybe looking for a bot dive in the 2v2.
Going in with the quickness. They're looking just to isolate on someone. They'll take him down. Mikyx low as well. Hylissang taking the tower. The hook dodged by Hylissang superbly. And now Mikyx down to 100 HP. Hylissang tanks it. Might fall, but in the end, he's got the grand entrance to make a perfect exit for Mad Lions.
9 minutes in and the Mad Lions are alive, aren't they? 2v2 dive in the bot side. They finally get this mid jungle rolling. It was falling out of their hands.
Don't get baited, crowd, okay? The observers do that like 4 times a game. You gotta anticipate.
G2 going to cross map with a Herald here. Chasy's going to spot it out. Nisqy has the TP, but this is as good as gone. So good proactivity now from Mad Lions.
Yeah, and the execution was great across the board from Mad. They set up the beautiful play in mid lane, didn't really give Caps a chance to respond. And then Hilly with the flash engage onto Han Summer. No ghost, no cleanse. He pops the ghost to try and get away to safety, but the chain CC was clean for Mad, which meant that alongside a beautiful sidestep from Hylissang results in 2 easy kills for Mad Lions.
Also, that Xayah E-Flash was insane. The fact that Carzzy knew that the AD would die and he can actually go for a double here, that E-Flash made it so they could get 2 kills there. If he just used the single E onto the Jinx, they would have probably just only gotten 1. And now Mad Lions can start to play really heavy mid-bot side. We expected G2 to play away from Mad Lions, leaning towards this top side. Now they're going to have to cover bot a little bit more.
So far, both teams largely playing towards their strengths. BrokenBlade is in a very powerful position, very quickly getting closer to his first item spike. Of course, 2 minutes away still for the next dragon. So G2 shouldn't feel pressured to go into any fights, but Mad Lions feeling a lot more confident as they move into the next skirmish that they would like to set up.
No TP yet for BrokenBlade either, though. That will be a bit of a pain to get himself involved in these fights. Unleash Teleport, 3.5 minutes away. And Mad Lions, again, like you said, they're going to look for dragons. When does G2 take the fight? And how much are they going to look to cover bot now? Because Yike's here, they've realized they can keep going top, but if this Jinx falls more and more behind, the game's just going to get really difficult. So defensive plays here from G2. I don't think they're setting up for a kill. I think Yike's just looking for any kind of counter gank or maybe some window to pop the Herald down.
Yeah, they do have the Herald, so maybe Yike will try and step up a little bit further forward, but you can see with him only staying in that first bush, obviously that's the hardest bush for Mad Lions to ward because you have to push further up into the lane, but Mad Lions have all 3 of them set up. Now they'll know that they're on vision as the ward went down in the river bush, and Carzzy and Hylissang now going to start pushing forward once again.
So Mad have two options here, but with the Dragon spawning in the next minute, I think they're going to keep leaning bot side here. But you saw Nisqy run up the river.
Hilly dodges, quickness goes down. Carzzy with the cleanse, they look for the damage on Mikyx. They can't quite get it down, and Hylissang will dash away. In the end, not too much burnt there from the G2 bot lane.
I think Carzzy's E was on cooldown there. He didn't use it, didn't have the burst. They have the ignite that just came up as well, so a little bit more and they had a kill.
Very close. Very, very close from the Mad Lions. Was punishing Mikyx there.
Oh, Caps trying to get away with the Ring of Frost into the Frozen Tomb, into the kick. Sonic Wave, a resonating strike to follow. Elyoya gets another in the mid lane, and Caps is 0-2.
I mean, this is the strength of Lissandra Lee Sin, right? Lissandra sets it up, and then the Lee Sin just knocks out the home run. It's a very difficult combo to play around, especially when you're not running things like the cleanse to be able to escape some of the CC that the Lissandra can throw down. And they make the same play once again in mid lane. This time, though, Nisqy utilizing the Ghost to catch Caps' flash off guard.
This is the power of the Gragas flex, right? If you blind Lissandra there as G2 to deny it, they're going to play Sylas Lee Sin, and it's not going to be any better. You blind Ahri, the same thing will happen. A control mage was a good idea, but of course, how immobile you are, you're just so easy to lock down. And now G2 have lane swaps. They've done something that BDS commonly does with Aphelios. Crowny was doing this in their best of 5 up against Vitality. He would oftentimes, even in an even lane state, just swap with Herald up, swap with a Herald in the inventory, just try to get as much gold, and then just keep mismatching away to make sure you can match their tempo.
And part of that as well is the Dragon is about to come up. So Mad Lions a little bit slower on reacting to this. Could have been setting up down towards that bottom side to get the second Dragon of the game. There are 3 plates still remaining on this top tier 1. The Rift Herald in inventory for Yike.
Dragon's up though, so what's happened here is G2 has pulled them all topside, looking for a fight.
Elyoya hook, Flame Chompers down, but Elyoya dodges away from them. The Flame Chompers not quite where the hook pulled Elyoya back to, meaning that Elyoya had that narrow window to escape.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that Mikyx didn't flay him into the Chompers and then follow up with the chain CC, but he probably figured that there was no way for Elyoya to escape from that situation. The Herald will be dropped down. G2 will commit to this play, and keep your eyes on Nisqy in the mid lane. He's constantly looking for a window to roam up towards top. He's now on the move, and Caps will be forced to follow.
It's a bit awkward for Matt because Carzzy doesn't have sums, so it's really hard for him to step up. But like you said, let's track those mid laners in the river. I think a fight might kick off around there if one of them doesn't decide to pull the trigger and get out. But who wants to get out first? It's a game of chicken.
Has the flash. Flame Choppers go down. There's the knock up with the Preakness Gale Force forward as well. Hansama holds both his summoners apart from the Ghost has already used that. Hansama underneath the tower is ignited. Now Carzzy having to get away with the Feather Caller. As he's locked down, Caps takes him out. And Caps is on the chase. Hylissang has to dash away. Mad Lions, one man down, decide they don't want any more part of that fight.
The skirmish breaks out as Mad Lions thought that they had caught Hansama off guard. But G2 were very quickly able to respond, protect their AD carry, and convert it into a kill. They're looking for one more play, now they have their eyes on Caps.
Flash, Frozen Tomb, knock up, Sonic Wave, Caps locked up. The rest of his team had left him to his own devices, and those devices meant death.
So one responded back there from Mad Lions, so overall pretty even. They lose to Lissandra Flash in the exchange, and interestingly though, all the meanwhile, BrokenBlade's used his flash. Chasy's half HP, ultimate of Chasy's on cooldown. BrokenBlade's TP is also on cooldown. I'm not sure when he used that as well. So maybe they were trying to get themselves involved in this fight too. Dragon is still up. They're just scrapping over this Herald at the moment. So let's see this again. Hylissang finds Hans isolated, and the rest of G2 want to help Nisqy out, help Caps out to force Nisqy back. So good engage, but Hansama actually holding the flash, seeing that the feathers are on the right side, knowing that the pullback won't land. Great turn from G2.
And you can see that Nisqy being forced up behind the Baron pit meant that Caps could collapse first, creating a 4v3 situation. And even though Hansama was forced out of the fight, the damage that he had done to Hilly was enough to start the initial fight in favor of G2. The greed here comes from Caps as he looks to try and secure an extra plate for himself. Nisqy sees a window where he says, hey, Caps, do you remember this play that we've done 2 other times now? Do you want to watch me do it again? Flashes in, gets the ultimate, and the follow-up from Elyoya is clean.
He did get the plate, though.
He did get the plate.
So it's like a net 200 gold to Mad Lions. Caps will take that. He got 175 out of it. In the end, though, the Dragon does go over to G2. The gold lead down to about 1,000 in favor of G2. It was a little bit higher than that a few moments ago. Mad, once again, quite a few members up towards this top side. Nisqy will be able to chip away at this tower. The singularity from Caps checked if there was anyone in the bush. And as the wave crashes in, Nisqy retreats away from the action.
Elyoya's looking, waiting for anyone to walk into this river. Good ward set up at the moment. They need to get it a little bit further if they want to look for those kind of picks, though. Mad Lions going to start this up pretty easily. Nisqy's got the heal. He's got the Everfrost. He is spiking so hard right now on that level 11 with 2 points in ultimate, so I think they're just going to have to give this G2. Yike's dropping the base. Caps still yet to pick up a Mythic, and now Mad Lions can start to threaten this top tier 1. Has the flash up here, Caps, but again, Mad Lions' comp is so CC heavy, and that's so powerful in the early to mid game, so G2 need to really respect it.
And I'm really interested in how these fights will be playing out later on into the game. We talked about how Mad's ease of execution when it comes to starting the fights is just a lot simpler. Rakan, you can follow it with the Gragas, you can follow it with the Lissandra, Lissandra from a flank. They have so many creative ways to actually kick off a fight. And if you as G2 try to engage, think of what you're engaging into. Even if you don't have the same tools, there's the Lissandra kick to maybe disengage. There's the Gragas barrel to disengage. There's the fact that Xayah can also ult herself. There's the Lissandra who can ult herself. Like, there's a lot of tools that make it awkward for G2 to actually start the fights that they want.
A good way to summarize it is on one end you've got uptime for G2, on one end you've got threat from Mad Lions. If they can avoid the threat of Mad and get as much uptime as possible, G2 will stop them in the fight. But if they are locked down and one kill happens or Hans or Caps falls, that's it. No matter how much damage you've got, if they can lock you down and they can land that threat, you're gone.
It's a DPS versus burst check.
Exactly, right. That's exactly it. So Mad Lions actually investing Nisqy's TP here. Maybe with that Herald, they want to drop it in mid right now and just keep the game, keep the pace of the game accelerated, and that's exactly what they'll do. No flash on Mikyx means it's quite hard for him to threaten the hook or kind of fake pressure Mad Lions away here, but this tower will fall.
And it will. Riftail's going to get charge in. And the crowd goes wild as the tower falls in the mid lane. Opens up more space on the map for Mad Lions. Next Drake in 2.5 minutes. It is Chemtech Sol, though, so not the most important objective for these teams to fight over.
And Mad Lions have always been that team that historically, when Nisqy came in last year, it was a very mid to bot heavy team. You know, pick a roaming mid, move towards bot, get the team rolling, and then mid game was where they shone. Oftentimes, I think they get a little bit overexcited when they get these leads and they go way too deep, they overchase, and that's when teams can find easy ways to turn. But at the moment, Mad Lions of old are looking like they're shining bright.
Wait, top lane exists? Oh, it only does because it's in bot lane. Okay, that's why Hylissang's ganking BrokenBlade right now. The slicing mouse are coming out, the stun's gonna land. BrokenBlade underneath the tower, Super Mega Death Rocket coming in as well. Chasy's low, but already BrokenBlade has fallen. Cap's trying to come in with a falling star, and he does manage to kill off Chasy. Elyoya dashing back forward, a huge shutdown to Caps. He's picked up 2 kills on this fight alone, flashes away from the feathers, and now Yike is on the chase. Hylissang and Carzzy should be able to escape this. You have enough tools, you've got the plants, you've got the cleanse. Hilly can dash, do exactly what he does. The play coming out though, Carzzy now locked up under the tower, and G2 perfectly juggle it to make sure they get one more on the board.
And we see it right there, the overconfidence of Mad Lions in the 4v1 dive. BrokenBlade can melt through the wave. Nisqy's not there. He used his TP mid to make sure they could get the tower. And then, of course, G2 are ready to respond. They managed to make the turn happen, and now Mad Lions have thrown away so much of this early mid game.
I really think the hero of that play was BrokenBlade. The fact that he was able to get such a great ultimate off and buy so much time for Caps to arrive, that they were able to turn that fight around and get a good collapse off. Huge props to him as Mad Lions saw a Yordle left isolated that they thought they could pick off quick. But BrokenBlade held strong and was able to turn around the play. Now the small gold lead in favor of G2. The Dragon spawns in about a minute's time. Ultimate should be alive around then, but I'm expecting another fight soon to come.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely get another fight. So let's look at this again. Hilly's going for the engage onto BrokenBlade. He melts through that wave so quickly. Hilly drops aggro. Rocket hits onto 3. Chasy flashes out a tower aggro, but I think he dies on the end of the explosion because it's the upgraded version of the ultimate. Elyoya has no W. Carzzy and Hilly have no way to threaten him or CC him, so he picks up the 2 kills, and the rest of G2 are collapsing. Look where Nisqy is. Mad Lions pulling the trigger in the 4v1, thinking that they could win. They have good vision set up, but G2 saw that play coming.
Remember that Nisqy used that TP in mid lane to put the Herald down, right? Like, they'd already committed that play earlier, so there was no way for him to really get involved in the fight. G2 creating a numbers advantage, and they were able to get ahead in that bot exchange. Now, though, of course, the blue being lost in favor of Mad, Caps will be denied.
And Caps is struggling this game because of the champions that he's playing against, but I just want to highlight, as much as we didn't see it too much in that replay, he actually sacrificed his top waves to run bot and cover BrokenBlade. He was probably calling to G2, hey, they're probably going to die bot here, let's cover it, and now he's got himself an extra couple kills, but the Dragon spawned. Mad Lions, really good setup around this objective. If anyone walks in here, they're going to get instantly blown up. BrokenBlade has the TP. Question is, where does he put this TP? Could do it towards the bot side of the map, but Mad Lions are marking both sides.
Chemtech Drake helping out Mad Lions a little bit. Those Scryers blooms a little bit easier as the hook connects onto Chasy. He pops down the explosive cast. Mikyx knocked into the team as the top laner for support trade so far. BrokenBlade though, TP'd on the wave, knocked back immediately. Carzzy trying to fight off towards the top side, but already a double. Yike going for more as he stuns up Hilly. Glacial part the wave, that's 3. Looking for more as Yike continues to dash forward. A heartbreaker, add another name to the list. It's a triple for Yike.
G2 just dismantled and dissected Mad Lions. 5 for 1, they managed to find a full ace. They're going to pick up this Dragon really easily as well, and That's 3 kills on the Jinx, that's 2 kills on the Viego. The scaling is going to start kicking in. And I feel like G2 just caught Mad Lions napping for a second.
I mean, I think we need to call him Mikyx marks the spot, because this man has been landing hook after hook this game. He's the one that started the fight off by landing that initial pick onto Chasy, and the rest was history. BrokenBlade found a great flank, and look again here, keep your eyes on Mikyx. He throws the ward over the wall. I'm not even sure if he had full vision on Chasy, but he catches him off guard. The single target chain CC is strong. Or they knock Mikyx back and he loses his life. The follow-up from G2 is good.
And the important thing here is Mad Lions are split. Carzzy's on one side, Nisqy and Elyoya are on the other. You want to stay together with this comp. You really want to just isolate one target and play front to back with just your burst. But how can you burst if your AD carries off to the left side of the fight?
And you look at Yike, he goes from one jungle to the next jungler that he had an incredible performance on just a few weeks ago with the Gragas, then gets himself a Rakan to engage once again, and he just keeps being given all these mobility options to keep the fight going.
And now G2 extend that lead, 4,000 gold ahead. They got the Drake as well. You can see Mad Lions setting up around this Baron. They realize they are spiking quite hard right now. 2 items on their AD carry, on their mid. But it's going to be a struggle for them to find these fights versus G2 now.
I wouldn't be surprised if Mad Lions force a Baron here. I think they realize they're playing against the clock. Hilly's basing now to refresh his wards. He just placed some down, but in the next minute or two, Mad Lions could look for the force. Hans didn't lose his flash though. And Caps is coming up again shortly, but they're not playing against the Kennen with flash, so that makes it a little bit easier for the backline to play. Let's keep our eyes on how Chasy moves around this map, because now Hilly's coming out of base with those wards, and G2 have taken setup. So Mad Lions, how do you break this?
And BrokenBlade has 2 items in stopwatch as well, so even if he does put himself in a bit of an awkward situation, he can just put that slicing mouse down for some zone control. Hylissang looking for one, Nisqy coming in from the side as well. They're trying to catch Ansama, but he flashes over the wall. Elyoya, the Sonic Wave wide, and now Hylissang's locked up in that slicing mouse. From Nisqy pops the stopwatch, but you have to feel G2 will just collapse upon him. Ansama gets another, Caps knocked back, flashes the wall once again. Feathers fly from Carzzy, but underneath the tower, you just can't do anything. A double for Hans, he opens up onto Elyoya. And underneath that turret, Mad Lions are battered and bruised.
Yeah, Mad Lions tried their final attempt. BrokenBlade almost takes Elyoya down, and they're going to pick up the Baron here, G2. I think that was one of the last attempts they'll get in this game here, Mad Lions. They knew they had to force on that mid wave, but a couple things went wrong. Hilly missed the knock-up onto Hansama. He hit it onto Mikyx, and then Elyoya couldn't land the Q to follow up, and then Nisqy was all alone in the middle of G2.
It's a situation where they tried to use that burst to catch Hansama off guard. Carzzy with a very aggressive trade already in the mid lane. BrokenBlade hovering for protection, and then you can see here, Hilly sidesteps the hook, engages onto Hansama, gets the charm, but then he doesn't get the 2-man knockup, which means that Hansama has the window to flash away. He then sidesteps the Q with Mikyx there, flashing over the wall to offer protection, and then the re-engage from G2.
And Nisqy's on top of 3 or 4. If he can buy time there and Hans and Mikyx fall after losing their flashes, that's fantastic, because Nisqy will die, yes, but his whole job is to buy time, and then Mad Lions can turn the 4v3, but unfortunately they don't land their spells, they don't get the kills, and that's a Baroned up G2 now looking at your mid tower.
And the game swings very heavily in favor of G2. Caps down towards the bottom lane, 7 seconds on his TP, so he will be able to join a fight if anything does begin. Dragon up in a minute, 40 seconds. Elyoya looking for the flank, but he's going to be spotted on that pink ward.
I think G2 can honestly just play safe. Wait for Infinity Edge on the Jinx. Just tell Mad Lions, you know what, we've got such a big lead now that we're going to slow the game down. We can avoid dragon fights if they want, but looks like they're just full rotating away from one lane. Instead of playing on 2, they're going to play on one singular lane and say to Mad, if you want to push mid, we'll base race you. They just want to stay together here, G2.
They're doing exactly that. 4 members strong. Up towards this bottom lane. Elyoya's on his way. Finishes Black Cleaver now, but everything just looks so dire for Mad Lions. Obviously, if they can, you know, isolate Hansama, if they can kill him off, they might be able to find enough damage to win out a fight. But there's Mikyx as well. Mikyx blessing on Mikyx, so even if you get a stun, even if you get a bit of CC onto him, Mikyx is ready and waiting.
Caps. It's got the ultimate.
Caps across the wall. The skies may descend. Instead, just a breath of light. And that will be the mid tower falling. Singularity out as well as Carzzy's getting chased away. Hansama looking for a little bit more. The Super Mega Death Rocket still in his pocket in case he wants to try and explode anyone. As you say, maybe just waiting for Hansama to get this Infinity Edge currently. Sitting right at the top of the gold chart, 2,000 ahead of Carzzy. And you can see how much of a struggle it is for Mad Lions in this mid game.
And I mean, just all of the G2 carries. It's really Mikyx that's been slacking this game. Obviously, just kidding. But what a great performance all across the board from G2. Huge props to BrokenBlade when in the isolated matchup. He was able to really take advantage of that, build himself a massive gold lead. He did, of course, get a few early ganks from Yike, which he used to full effect. And in these team fights, it's just been G2 doing exactly what we were discussing earlier, right? Mitigating that burst, limiting Mad's options at the start of the fight, and then being able to turn it around in their favor. Another hook lands.
Hilly can dash away, though. Should be able to escape that one. Anyone else could have been a sitting duck. Hilly has the tools in his toolkit to evade death.
Yeah, it's interesting how Mad never really found a way to break open the game, despite killing Caps 2 or 3 times in mid, getting a 2v2 dive bot. Things just didn't work out. Yike maybe have to flash here, Nisqy, if he wants to land the ultimate.
Yike pops the Scryer's Bloom to make sure that Nisqy and Elyoya can't do it. Dodges the Sonic Wave blind. Smart play from him. And I think a lot of it comes down to that bot lane play, Caedrel. You mentioned it at the time, Mad Lions just overextended, and that really broke the game open for G2.
I mean, I also think that in the early game, especially when you have a composition that relies on getting early leads, Herald is a really important objective. Yeah. Like, it unlocks the map a lot. It's a great way to actually siege these mid-tower, in particular, flashing from Chasy.
Oh, the explosive cost not quite where you'd want it to be. Huntsaman now opening up with the zap, and they've got the stun, and they're locking him down. Chasy, though, Yike has to pop a stopwatch. Caps is coming in. The skies will descend in a second as the slicing maelstrom has already been used. Nisqy locked up, and here come the skies. Chasy hit with a comet! And what is more fitting for Aurelion Sol than to smack a meteor into someone's backside? He takes another in the base, and G2 4-1 to the good will push in for the win.
G2 wipe Mad off the map once again, and they're looking for a sub 30-minute win. In this best of 5, G2 came to play, and they're looking strong.
And it seems like it may be a repeat of the winter finals. Mad Lions were routed then. And in this game, although they showed a few signs of life, G2 have knocked them to the dirt. On the fountain, Elyoya falls. G2 will pick up another kill before they end it, but that's 1-0 to the good.
Great start for G2. Mad Lions had the game in their hands a couple times there, and although they didn't break the game fully wide open, they did have a couple plays to put them in a winning position, but G2 defended one of their plays so fantastically well, and then they just took over. On top of that, the next Dragon fight where Mikyx landed that hook that you highlighted, Vedius, it was from that point onwards that I think the lead was just so comfortably in G2's favor that Mad Lions as champions and the way that they could play the game was just so nullified.
Yeah, a strong opening game from G2. A couple of question marks as a result of their group stage performances, where we see that level of consistency. And one of the big talking points that we had coming into this week was Caps hasn't looked his strongest throughout the group stages. Will he become stronger in the best of 5? So far in game 1, he was attacked. But overall, I would say he's definitely had a very solid game as the rest of his team continues to step up. Yike continuing his very strong performances.
I very much agree with you there, Vedi. I think the 0-3 to 3-3 really accelerated Caps back into the game. Across the board, though, this Jinx seems to be working for G2 after they struggled to find it last week. Maybe they just couldn't type J into the champion selector. And taken away from Carzzy as well, who last week had so many good performances on the Jinx, was really in a position to carry as well in this early game. He was in a very strong spot, and he just couldn't do it with the same power as a Jinx.
Is Mad Lions blue side Jinx first pick worth it?
Well, I was going to say, how valuable do we think the Rakan still is? Because G2 are quite happy to give it up in exchange for the priority on the Kennen, and they're basically saying, you don't have many champions that can answer our Kennen. We do have something we feel confident playing into the Rakan, and while there were times where Rakan did find good engages, by and large, they got a lot of value out of that Thresh Jinx.
I think my question there is, can you play Aphelios Rakan, right? Can either of these teams have the confidence to bust out the Aphelios there? Because I think giving up Jinx and playing Aphelios Rakan is a pretty good trade.
It could be. We'll see if that happens in game 2. For now, though, we're going to hand it over to Guldborg and Rekkles, who are standing by.
Thank you very much, Medic. Yeah, we are going to look to have a look at Yike and his early game pathing on the Viego, because honestly, I don't know if he could have played that first clear much better than he did.
Maybe not the entire game. He's just been an absolute beast on Viego, and I think back to my time in LFL last year when we were facing him in LDLC, and I remember my coaching staff telling me before every game to ban Viego, and this is probably why.
Yeah, I actually checked it up as well. I think his all-time on Viego before this game was 28-6, so now 29-6.
Yeah.
Pretty good. So if we start by rolling out the clip, but you can see once again G2's going for some early aggression. We saw it against the likes of not BDS, but when they played the former series as well against Koi, where they got a lot of vision here. They do it again. Doesn't spot Elyoya in the beginning, but basically just a blue side clear except the wolves.
He skips the wolves and will still get the level 3 on the red buff here, so he is ready to combat if anything comes up. In this case, not much will come up since they both spot each other in river. After that, he makes sure to cover the bot push out, which could be dangerous for the Jinx if Lee Sin is skipping camps. So basically, from this point, he's everywhere. He can be anywhere. He's ready to combat because he skipped the wolves and instead did the red buff.
And even though nothing happens in the bot lane here, it's so pivotal that he comes around to really just be a facilitator if anything should happen, a counter gank or something like that. And as we actually pause the replay right here as well, you can see the map state. Because of what he's done right now, you've been able to come back with Hans, so he's already in a beneficial position with that quick reset on the Jinx. Up towards the top side as well, still good vision, so they would know if any wards were coming through as well. So as we continue out the clip, he's not reset just yet. He's stunned the camps and he's now making his way back up, and a little bit of a lazy ward maybe?
Very much a lazy ward from Chasy, but regardless, I think it's quite unexpected for Yike to be here because he did top the bot, so normally he would be bot for a longer time, maybe resetting before it makes anything happen, but in this case he farms all the way back up to top, does the play, resets, makes sure to be in time for the counter play that Mad were trying to pull off, comes with an item now. Elyoya still has in base, so this is always a favorable fight
He
for
just
G2.
everywhere on the map, that's the thing, like he got a full clear on the camps, he got a kill top side, he got a kill bot side. I mean, you couldn't have asked more, right?
And covered mid and bot after level 3 as well.
I mean, it's like Malrang with the most efficient jungler as well at the same time. But yeah, thank you. That's it for the Telestrator, Rekkles. I know you got the rest of the desk to walk over to.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we do have a lot to talk about. I want to pull up the picks and bans with the pick order because I think it's fair to say that you both weren't convinced by the draft out of G2 when it went into the game, right, Yamato?
Yeah, we were both very concerned about Aurelion Sol in the mid lane, you know, playing against Lissandra Lee Sin. They kind of can just choose whenever they're going to kill you. I know that you also mentioned that they have like four threats and they don't really have facilitators. What's your take on the G2 draft?
So normally I would be much happier to see some kind of facilitating champion in mid lane here because you already have the Viego, you already have the Jinx, and the Kennen as your power pick, first pick. So I don't really feel like you need Aurelion in the game. And I'm particularly surprised by the fact that he didn't run Cleanse in this one because I think whenever Lissandra wants to ult him, he's going to die, and it happened 3 or 4 times in this one. So I was surprised by the pick and also the summoner choice. But regardless, he ended up being really useful. He made a really good call, I think, around the time they dove BrokenBlade in the bot lane and got 2 kills for himself and got himself in a strong position again. But yeah, a lot of things have to go right, I think, for G2 in this game to be in a strong position. And I guess Yike ended up doing a lot of things right.
Yes.
So it was okay in the end, but scary with so many carries.
Is that what you generally characterize G2 as when they go into these drafts? They are willing to go for things where everything needs to go right out of a certain confidence in their own ability? And what do you think about it as a coach?
I feel like G2's biggest strength is just how they transfer pressure. And when they are playing champions that allow them to do less so, this is where I get concerned because they don't get to pull off that strength. But I do have to highlight as well that I think G2, when it comes to deeper extended games, in the late game decision-making, set up around Drake and Nashors, if they get to those points where they have champions like Jinx or Aurelion Sol, I feel like they can analyze the goal of the composition and kind of facilitate those champions to kind of excel.
I feel like that's what we saw in the game as well.
Yeah, and I really like the change they've made in the bot lane as of late. I feel like previously with the Varus, we had that graph up at the very end of our segment earlier.
Yeah.
But so in the first best of 3 series they played, they had the Varus 3 games in a row. And I think their idea is just, we're going to win bot lane and we're going to use that pressure for something in the game, whatever that is, maybe jungle lead, maybe mid lead. In this case now, they've made the adjustment in the last series to play a hyper carry instead. I think they feel like they're winning bot lane regardless of what they play because of their player skill. So they can get away with a champion like Jinx, have her in a really good position in the game, and have Hans actually have agency later in the game. Because if you look at this draft, there's actually a ton of scaling. Way more scaling on G2 side than Mad side, and they're still winning the early game. They still got the cheater in the bot lane. They still were the ones trying to make plays in the early game. So I feel like they kind of get away with things because of their player skill, which otherwise wouldn't be possible.
Speaking of player skill, the bot lane matchup here was super interesting to watch. We had Thresh for Mikyx and Rakan for Hyli. And in terms of historical win rate, 32 wins, 8 losses in LEC history on Thresh for Mikyx, and 38 wins, 16 losses on Rakan for Hyli. That's you know, they were going at it. And we saw some beautiful moments, I think, from both sides. We'll take a look at some bot lane action in just a second, but it's just beautiful to see it play out.
It's crazy that both of us have had the pleasure of working with both of them, actually, and both of them are absolutely legendary on their champions. You know, the Rakan of Hilly, of course, showcased in this game what he can pull off, finding that 2v2 kill. Mad Lions bot lane is bot lane has been criticized, and here they find an advantage in the 2v2. And Mikyx as well earlier with the hook on the Thresh and how he facilitated the fights and played around the Viego. It was just a beauty to watch all around.
Yeah, I think Hilly had a really good game. Like the first 10-15 minutes, he had a really good game. Then they had some fights which felt too forced, in my opinion. They had the one top fight where they tried to go on Hans. He had double summoner up, couldn't pull it off. They had one around mid as well, where Carzzy Gale Force in first, and then they tried to follow up on it, and it was a bit off.
The bot dive too, yeah.
Maybe people won't think from looking at this game that they actually had a really good game on the Xayah, but I think they were in a position where they could have taken over that game. So I would be thinking twice if I'm G2 next game about giving the Rakan again.
I think that's a great note, because you could quickly say, oh, is there anything else there? But they were doing their jobs. I think the team let them down, or they let each other down in this next replay, the 20-minute ace, or it was, of course, if you want to look at it from the other side, G2 just being, you know, classic G2 and going in and decimating Mad Lions.
Beautiful hook. I thought at first here G2 is crazy to want to contest this in the first place, because there's a Chemtech Drake and Xayah's on 2 core. Jinx didn't finish 2 items just yet, but they find that hook and they walk into this fight with so much bravado and confidence, because Yike had such of a big advantage, and when you find that one kill, the sequencing of how just Yike played out the Viego is just
I think he might have played it almost pixel perfect, this one, Yike. Almost pixel perfect. Crazy good on Viego.
Yeah.
A false sense of security this whole game. Like, I think this, where they end up acing the Mad Lions, also the fact that the Aurelion Sol was having such a bad time, but then some key kills and he's back. Same for Viego. Mad Lions is moving on to the blue side, Rekkles, for this next game. What do you think their adaptations will be?
I think they will now consider Jinx as a power pick, because most likely in this first game they were thinking we get the Rakan, enemy won't play Jinx anyway, and then we go for the Xayah on 3, and we should have a favorable bot situation. But G2 end up picking the Jinx Thresh on the 2-3, and I think those are champions you probably don't want to give. So what do you do with the Jinx now? I feel like that's kind of where you're left in the next draft.
Where does the Jinx go? Well, G2, they take game 1 in this best of 5 and are one step closer to facing Vitality tomorrow. How will Matt bounce back in game 2? Find out after the break.
From the mid lane, Elyoya hooked! That's a lollipop if I've ever seen one, and it doesn't taste too good for Elyoya.
He shows here, I'm gonna flash shoot him, okay?
Yeah, I think we can already. Hi, W.
Okay, looks good, nice, good job, well played.
I'm soon here.
Okay, Xayah
on a flash.
Xayah is dead, Xayah is dead.
Yeah.
Go.
No kick, no kick, no kick.
Maybe Nash.
Hey,
No
listen,
kick, no kick,
wait,
no
listen.
kick.
Okay,
No kick, Lee.
No, Nash. Or the one I just... whatever.
Nice!
Nash or what?
And it seems like it may be a repeat of the Winter Finals. Mad Lions were routed then. G2 have knocked them to the dirt.